It's March 2020. Two businesses sit on the same street. Same customers. Same rent. Same lockdown. One quietly disappears within months. The other raises money, buys competitors, and comes out bigger than before. Most people say this is about management or luck. It isn't. There is a system running underneath every crisis. You don't see it. You're not invited into it. But it decides, very early, who gets oxygen and who suffocates. And once you understand how it works, a lot of economic mysteries stop being mysterious. Right now, this matters more than ever, because we are entering an era where crises are no longer rare events. They're features of the system. Pandemics, rate shocks, supply chain breaks, energy crunches. And every time, the same pattern repeats. So let's slow this down and walk through what's actually happening. Not the press releases, not the motivational founder stories, the machinery. Imagine a crisis like a sudden drop in oxygen pressure. The room doesn't explode, there's no alarm for most people, but breathing becomes harder. Revenue falls, customers hesitate, bills don't. At this moment, survival depends on one thing above all others: access to liquidity. Not profits, not innovation, cash, and more importantly, confidence from the people who control it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. During a crisis, markets don't ask, "Is this business good?" They ask, "Who is already plugged into the system?" Because when fear spikes, money doesn't scatter evenly. It retreats. And when it retreats, it moves toward familiarity, scale, and perceived safety. This is where the hidden sorting mechanism begins. Banks pull back lending, investors freeze new bets, risk committees rewrite rules overnight. But they don't shut down completely. They ration. And they ration based on relationships, balance sheets, and signaling, not fairness. Let's make this concrete. A small restaurant chain and a global food brand both lose 40% of revenue. Same percentage hit, very different outcomes. The global brand already has credit lines. They already have bond market access. They already have analysts defending them on TV. When they need cash, the question isn't, should we lend? It's how much and at what rate. For the smaller chain, the question is entirely different. Will they even exist in 12 months? That single question shuts doors before they're even opened. Now layer in central banks. When a crisis hits, central banks step in to stabilize markets. This sounds neutral. It isn't. They don't buy from everyone. They don't support everything. They operate through financial markets, government bonds, corporate bonds, banks, which means support flows first to entities that can issue securities, post collateral, or sit inside the formal financial system. Large corporations, large banks, asset-heavy firms. Liquidity enters at the top and trickles down if conditions allow. Sometimes it doesn't. This is why crises quietly accelerate consolidation, not because big companies are smarter, but because they are closer to the money spigot. Here's the part that feels almost absurd. In many crises, the companies most at risk operationally receive the most financial support. Airlines burning cash, backstopped. Zombie firms loaded with debt, refinanced. Speculative giants labeled too important, rescued. Meanwhile, smaller businesses, profitable, fail, not because they were broken, but because they were invisible. This isn't a conspiracy, it's plumbing. Financial systems are built to protect the pipes, not the droplets. Now let's talk about the hidden math. When interest rates are low, capital is patient. When rates spike, capital becomes judgmental. Suddenly, survival depends on your cost of capital. If you borrowed cheaply years ago, you can endure losses longer. If you need to borrow now, you're punished immediately. This creates a time-based inequality most people miss. Past access becomes future survival. Two companies face the same shock. One locked in 3% debt. The other faces 11%. Same business, different destiny. And during crises, this gap widens fast. Investors flee uncertainty. They crowd into companies that can issue debt, roll it over, and buy time. Time is everything in a crisis. Time lets demand return. Time lets competitors fail. Time lets narratives recover. Businesses don't die because they're bad. They die because they run out of time. Now contrast this with the hype we're sold. We're told crises are great equalizers, that weak companies fail and strong ones rise. It sounds clean, almost moral, but reality is messier. Crises don't test efficiency, they test access. They don't test discipline, they test proximity. This is why you see something strange after every major shock. Stock markets recover before small businesses do. Corporate profits rebound while local economies lag. Asset prices soar while wages struggle. The system isn't broken, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Preserve financial stability first, economic fairness second, if at all. Zoom out even further. This mechanism changes behavior long before a crisis hits. Big companies hoard cash, not just for safety, but for opportunity. They know downturns are shopping seasons. Smaller firms take more operational risks because they can't afford idle capital. Then when the crisis comes, the script flips. Cash hoarders become predators. Risk takers become casualties. Again, not because of intelligence, but because of positioning. Here's the quiet irony. The system that claims to promote competition systematically reduces it during stress. Each crisis leaves fewer players, bigger players, more concentrated power. And with each round, the barrier to survival rises. Not in good times, in bad ones. This has consequences most people don't immediately connect. Innovation slows, not because people stop inventing, but because fewer entities can survive long enough to scale ideas. Prices become stickier, choices shrink, dependence grows. And the next crisis becomes even more dangerous because the system is more concentrated than before. So where does that leave us? If you're a founder, a worker, or an investor, the lesson is uncomfortable. Merit matters, but timing and access matter more. Understanding the hidden system doesn't make it disappear, but it does change how you interpret success and failure. It explains why resilience is often purchased years in advance, why survival sometimes decided before trouble even arrives. And it raises a question most policymakers avoid. If every crisis strengthens the same players, if survival depends less on value and more on wiring, at what point does stability become stagnation? Because the system that saves businesses during a crisis also decides which ones are allowed to exist afterward. And that decision is rarely debated out loud.